we're talking about last month's meeting, not the special meeting first. Any questions, comments, or addition? And there's Kimberly. Any comments, questions about last month's meeting minutes? If not, may I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So next we'll talk about the special meeting where we met to discuss the hairless naming of the Civic Center, US, all the names. Everybody have a chance to read the attendance? Any questions, changes, comments? If not, may I get a motion?
Motion to approve.
Anybody for a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Should we pause for a moment? So while we're doing that, we can at least look at the agenda and you'll see on here that under new business, downtown design review, the Aston, that project actually will not be presenting today. We do expect them to come back. There were just a couple process details, so they'll be circling back. I imagine we might hear some design review updates, but it will be removed from the agenda today. And because it's posted on here, I'm not sure if we need to actually agenda to remove it. We did by email, but the community thinks that it's happening. So I'm just gonna pull that from the agenda. Anything else? Anything else we need to add? Changes in order? Okay. All right, so while you set that up, I'm just gonna keep going on through Downtown Association updates. We have a couple big things happening. So as you know, it's summertime, and that means it's Downtown After 5. So Downtown After 5 takes place on the third Friday of every month, and the next one will be June 21st. We'll have a guest from Austin, Tamika Jones, and she'll be the headliner. She has a new single, Hot and Bothered, if you've heard it. And Secret B-Side, which is an Asheville local band, will be opening for her. We also have a summer member mixer on June 26th, and that will be 5:30 to 7 at the So True Seed office. And attendees will have a chance to win 2 tickets to the Chow Chow Festival, which is our new food-based festival here in Asheville. There's also an interesting opportunity that some of the ADA members will be attending, but I feel like I would encourage you all to attend as well. And that is that Howard Bound is hosting an educational opportunity to present the program that they offer on homelessness and what they're working on. It's a free presentation. It will be discussing all the aspects of homelessness, how people become homeless, what we can do to help rise people out of that, what their work programming is specifically. So that event is June 28th. It's at the AC Marriott, and it is from 9 to 10:30 a.m. There is a link to register, even though it is a free event. If you would, I'll somehow get that in minutes. I'll send it to you, Dana, so it's out there for you guys to join. I'll be in attendance, and I hope you will be too. The next big thing we'll be working on is July 4th. I often think the community assumes that the city of Asheville throws this event, but Asheville Downtown Association does the firework event and the big July 4th celebration, which is a huge undertaking, and it's also when a lot of people travel. So we are short volunteers right now. If anybody would like to volunteer, you can let me know and I'll sign you up. And that is, well, I will mention we have another speaker series. My planning idol will be here this winter. Jeff Speck, who wrote Walkable Cities, one of my favorite city planning books ever. He'll be our guest speaker in November, and I'll keep you posted on that date, but be sure to come. Okay, that's it for our ADA updates. What about design review?
We've got a couple of projects that were reviewed at our May 21st meeting, and Sasha, thank you for sending us all the meeting notes for that. So if y'all all had a chance to look at that, I'm just going to go through the highlights. I think some of the important points that were noted in the notes that Sasha sent out. But there were basically 3 projects. The first one was the Aston building we've seen before, and this is the development that's at the corner of Livingston Street and Clingman Avenue, and it's basically a variance request that they were looking for. There were a number of options and ideas that were tossed about among the design team and the DRC members, but basically it involves streetscape and street trees and trying to deal with DOT requirements. So there were some options that were discussed, and they're going to be coming back to the table either directly here or maybe in a design review meeting. But the second item was the first review of a project that, if you haven't seen the notes and the link that's in the agenda and the notes that Sasha sent, it's going to be best to look at that. But this is a project that we just started digesting. It's the Ashland Avenue, Cox Avenue development on the South Slope. It's an extremely large proposed new mixed-use development, just short of 600 residential units, 1,000 parking garage for the development. There were a lot of things that were discussed with 5 brand new buildings, this much square footage. So the design review committee focused on basic design concepts in terms of building materials, height, massing, impact to adjacent properties, vehicular access, public access, pedestrian access, and basically everything we could think of within the time frame we were allowed to speak and for a first meeting. Some of the interesting things that I think came out that I think the commission is going to be interested in hearing a lot more about are connectivity between Cox Avenue and Ashland, and this is something that the Design Review Committee mentioned. What is the open public connectivity? I know this is something that we bring up a lot with projects that take up basically a whole block or span a block. I know that that's something that the design team stated they would be looking at. Other interesting elements that impact like off-site, Federal Alley through here. There's some really strong potential there that we're looking forward to seeing more and then having presented here, ideas the team has presented here to the commission overall. The Design Review Committee kind of brainstormed on what visual perspective views would be helpful to demonstrate to the commission the total impact of the site. So I think that they're likely working on those at this point. We discussed impacts from adjacent sites, from the neighborhood across Ashland, west of the site, coming down Cox Avenue. Really, it was just kind of a brainstorming session to think about the impacts of a project of this scale. It's going to be, they stated that the project's going to be moving through as quickly as they feasibly can, so it's likely that there's going to be a presentation at the next design review committee, and then immediately thereafter, something coming here for review. The third project was basically an update on what's being called Create 72, the hotel development that's beside the Masonic Temple on Broadway, between Broadway and Market, and the architect was basically seeking input on the material palette. Also, there were a couple of concerns that were brought up, and the architect began to address those, one of those being parking. And Peter Alvarez, the architect, stated that they have picked up, I think, quote, a few more spaces. There really wasn't a number involved. They picked up a few more spaces in their parking garage and how they're going to schedule the big valet. But there's a big presentation, I think, that's going to be interesting for the commission to hear about this. But just a lot of discussion about building materials. There's a lot going on with that building. So trying to head off some of the issues that have popped up in building construction we're experiencing now, like EFIS. And I believe that is it for some discussion about reappointments that,
Yeah, there's another agenda.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a quick question. I see that, we can see that the polystyrene is not disintegrated, right? So, I mean, is our efforts here having some effect in getting developers to use less materials that include less or stay around site?
It's a similar material, but it's extruded, and it was described to me as instead of falling off and flying away, it falls to 100,000 square feet of new commercial and amenities, an incredible amount. The Mission Tower that just went up was around 600,000 square feet. Yeah, so it's a very large project, very exciting, tons of housing in downtown, and even though it's outside the scope of design, I will say there's a affordable housing component, so I look forward to hearing more about that one. 600,000 square feet of new residential, they said.
I noticed that some of the buildings are sort of triangle shaped.
There is a triangular shaped building of offices in that drawing.
Amazing what you can do in a triangle.
Yes. Thank you for that update, Stephen. All right, we are on to new business, design review number 363 pulled. So we're right into the member term that Stephen Lee was discussing. So you have in your document this, in your staff documents, the rules and procedures for Asheville Downtown Commission. And what we've done here is draft the proposed changes. We're, I believe, the only body that will review this, and it's really page 5 is the only change. We'll flip to that. Oh, not everybody has that, I'm so sorry. Okay. Well, is it in the? It's in the packet online. Yeah.
It's just 4 or 5 words.
Yes, it's not much, and really, Stephen Lee gave a great summary. It's talking about moving the terms from that committee from 2 to 3 years to align with almost every other board and committee that we already have. It came up because Brian Moffitt, we were unclear in his term with these renewals. He should have been reappointed last year, and there was just some strangeness. But does anybody have any concerns about moving the subcommittee to a 3-year term? We also need to reappoint him today, is that right? Or
I was kind of, it was so last
Wraps it in.
minute, I didn't want to like throw a bunch of things at you, so
Yeah.
we could do it today if you felt comfortable, or we could do it next month. I mean, we won't change the actual start anytime, so.
I go to those design review meetings. I would love to do whatever we can to keep Brian Moffitt on that committee. He's incredible. Wealth of information and perspective. And if keeping it and moving to a 3-year term allows us to do that, I'm entirely supportive. Does anybody else have any concerns or comments around that?
So good.
It aligns with, our terms too.
Just a quick question, is this about a particular member, or is this
No.
about the function?
It's about the function, and because it's just off calendar with all the other terms too, but, yeah.
But wasn't it designed, like, when I first, I'm not disagreeing on this, we have to do 3 terms, 3 years, but, I think when I first started, there was something about, we stated 2 years was good, so that it was a little bit offset from our term, so there wasn't this jarring shift potentially with members coming off and on, and how it affected the committees.
I think actually it was more about, wanting to make sure there was a lot of turnover, having new people on, and 2 years has just flown by so fast. We're actually to 3 years more, so, I mean, it's gone very fast, and I think we were thinking, when we wrote that, I can blame myself since he's not here, but, we thought 2 years was plenty, but it's actually flown by very fast, so it seems like 3 years.
So then how do we balance like keeping new people on while also extending terms to people who are working well? Like, is there a way to think about that? Because I do think that there's some validity to that, especially with diversity of perspective. And so how do we do both?
It's a good question. I'm not sure if they're, they're kind of, they rub up against each other.
Well, you can't just like give some people 2 years and some people 3
No,
years.
no,
It's
no.
gotta be either 2 years or 3 years.
Right.
There are 5 committee members, is that right? Are they staggered in a way that 4 can flip itself at 1 year?
Well, 3 of them are commission members, so
Yeah.
they're kind of dependent on their terms, and I don't have your roster in front of me.
Is there an at-large person that could be rotated off?
Well, there's two community members who must be design professionals. So that's the terms we're talking about here. So we're not really discussing the downtown commission piece, because that just happens with your regular terms.
It's already a small universe because it's a design professional.
Somewhat, yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not like there's people saying,
So like when Stephen Lee was in that community position and he moved into the commission seat, that created a kind of off cycle, if you will. So,
so if a commission member's term ran, they would have to step down from that.
Yes.
If they weren't coinciding with that.
like so when Michael McDonough came off, he came off the committee.
I guess.
And then, if someone completes their 2 terms, is there a rest year and they're eligible again, or is it a lifetime cap?
We don't have a rule about that. I mean, I think the committee does benefit from this kind of changing, bringing new people in, and if you always have the exact same people, that's not great.
Well, if you want to have more community involvement, the only way to do it would be to expand the committee. I mean, it's only 2, public members right now with 3 commission members. Be something for them to consider that maybe they need 1 or 2 more community members on the commission. Problem has always been getting people to apply.
It hasn't actually for this committee, actually been, not for the commission. I don't know if you're talking about commission or committee.
Not talking about the committee, the commission, we have one.
Committees have plenty, and it's actually because there's a lot of young architects in town who want to be on.
But that would be one way if you want more diversity or more public input, would be to have a larger committee.
And that's something we could do.
Yeah.
Would that address some of your concerns, do you think?
Well, yeah, but I don't think it needs to be too large. I do think that there's room, in my mind, I'm like, there could be one kind of person or role that changed out more frequently, that was more of an outlier, that kept kind of the freshness. And then if they wanted to stay, they could be on the longer term. I don't know, I'm just trying to make sure that we don't get like stuck in perspective. The same people making the same decisions, getting better at making those decisions over years. Some messiness is good for perspective and adaptation.
Great points.
No, I like the size the way it is. I think if it gets too large, we lose kind of the intimate feeling, the comfortableness of a small group. And I think the developers feel, and I think the members of the committee feel, and there's more time for everyone to get to speak. As it gets larger and everyone wants to throw an opinion, then the meetings are gonna just be longer and more complicated, in my view.
I'd like to add to that, the meetings are open to the public, and occasionally we do have, interested people coming in. I think that for all of us here, if we know someone that would be, a good mix, to add to that, level of professional ability and diversity, I think then you can be encouraged to pop in. They're really interesting meetings, and, it's a great way for them to be involved. There's always, it's a small scale meeting, and it's very intimate, and anybody that comes is going to have an opportunity to speak, and I think I'd like to just mention that. It's a good way to get involved.
Does it have to be an odd number of people on that committee? I'm wondering if we would have 5, do we have to go to 7, or?
Or follow her like actual voting in there. No, so it's not like it would get deadlocked with an even number or anything.
So bringing equity back into the mix is, working class folks and people of color, often the predominant number in our town, are not available during, this time or committee session times because they work and they're not in a managerial position or a salary position that affords them to include it in their job to be at the meetings. So even though our meetings are open to the public, they do exclude a large population of our neighbors. So I just want to keep that and bringing that up because then it becomes more like how we're doing it, and it's very exclusive, based on privilege, not based on equity. Thank you, Kimberly.
So, I cannot sense what this commission would like to do.
Well, I think that, the committee has requested extending the terms to 3 years, and that would be in line with all the other boards and commissions. I see no reason not to do that, since the committee has requested that. There doesn't seem to be
we're like running right over our neighbors. It's like, it doesn't even matter. We're just doing business as usual. So I was actually leaning towards 3 years, but I'm gonna say nay, we can get to the vote, because I just feel like we're constantly running over our neighbors to get to conclusions.
Well, and so this would be the time, I mean, we're fortunate that we've had another large review pulled from this agenda, so we have a little bit more time today than we would have. So I think it's a perfect time to have that conversation, if you see ways that we could address those concerns. I mean, does the committee want to talk? Do you guys want to talk about having more members right now? I heard from 2 members of the design review committee that they're happy with the 5 and the size.
Well, there's, you know, anyone can apply, any design professional can apply for those at large. And we've tried to get some gender diversity, and if we can get, you know, other diversities to apply, there's no reason they can't be a part of that committee. It doesn't have to be large to include diversity.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think I have a schedule today that shows, so, what did I read? So, a committee member currently is going to be rolling, they were due for reappointment in May of 2018, so they will be sitting until, that was the end of their 2nd year, so it's.
So this, yeah, so either, so if we didn't do anything, if you all didn't do anything, he would be into a 2nd term of his 2 years, so he would have 1 more year and then be done.
1 more year.
And I don't really want to make it about him.
It's not about him,
But
yeah.
at the same, so, and it was 3 years, we could, kind of in the interest of, you know, what you're saying, we could open it up, back up for, you know, applications. And then, you know, the committee can make a recommendation, go through our regular process, and the commission can decide how to appoint. I think it would be helpful just to step back for 1 second and think about the purpose of the committee. So the purpose of the committee is really to vet designs of buildings. And it's not to say that community members don't have thoughts and feelings and valid opinions about design. They do, for sure. We've kind of put this at a, you know, for more professional level, because it gets kind of to the heart of design issues. And I think in terms of community input and public engagement, that's not the purpose of this committee, or it never has been before. So, that's partly why we ask, you know, any level 2 or level 3 project in downtown to hold a neighborhood meeting at the very beginning, so that they're asking for input from the community. So if we are thinking that maybe community input and public engagement around design is an issue,
That's not what I'm saying.
okay.
My dad was an architect, I totally get everything
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking
Well,
about.
Dane was talking about public engagement, so I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, so,
So if we move to 3-year terms, then he is finishing his 1st term now.
right,
And would need to be reappointed.
right.
And so either way, I mean, that would actually make us open it up to more potential applications.
Right.
And we'd actually be a little late, right, because it's already
Right, a
in
little
the past.
late.
So we would have to do that rather quickly.
Honestly, I feel like I benefit from the community input that is here at this time. And if people get focused away on another committee meeting and I'm not there for that, then I miss that input. So I'm wearing my activist pin today, so I understand input fatigue. And having some focused opportunities to do that in front of actually a vote-giving body like ours, I think might be more effective than sort of trying to divide up the community into places that we might not see as full commission members.
And then we hear all the updates, right?
Yeah.
It's an interesting point.
So Kimberly, I hear you, and I just feel like I'm trying to get the same place with you, but I just feel the different route on how that, like, I feel like I would miss the community input if it was focused.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about community input, I'm talking about professionals who, a diversity of professionals, same professional background and criteria. My dad was an architect for years, so I get this conversation. I'm saying that there's an opportunity to mix it up more. There's a lot of stuff coming down the pike, and as much as I love and appreciate and respect the design review committee members that are here, I also get nervous that if we have the same people in the same positions for too long, then all of this development and building happens by a lot further further gentrifying people because there's a disconnect for what that really means. So we're still building with the same momentum without really considering all the things that are happening with neighbors and the buildings that exist. So I'm just being more like on the ground about it, like very low to the ground and not so high up in the air, you know?
And so just to clarify, if we move to 3-year terms right now, then the application period would open and Brian could apply. If we kept it at 2 years, then we don't have this conversation about new members until next year.
I mean, or, you know, another option for you all would be to approve the 3-year terms and then ask the design review committee to, look at expanding the committee by 1 or 2 people. Maybe there's a community person term that maybe is shorter, and I don't wanna say they shouldn't be a design professional, but it could be that way. I mean, it doesn't have, you know, I mean, the one thing is that the design committee doesn't do is they don't, really look at design in terms of, is this too much development too fast? You know what I mean, in terms of that kind of, they really are focused on the design, so. I think that conversation is happening more here in the commission, because it's too much for our city.
Maybe, let me throw something out there, maybe there's a third way on this, maybe we can pull some from the neighborhood convention, some from the historic resources commission.
We have historic resources commission.
Brian Moffett is chair of the.
That's, okay,
Yeah.
that's just national, so we've already got this, just trying to see if there's, there might.
So, Sasha, to your point, would we ask the design review committee about how they feel about their numbers, or would we suggest as the commission to our subcommittee that they expand their numbers? I mean,
You can do it.
it seems like it would be us saying, you know what, we'd like to see more representation on this commission, and we'd like to see an increase in seats. And obviously, have them weigh in on it, but, you know, they're still our subcommittee.
I guess I'd like to see a couple things from the design review committee before I make a decision, which is, A, do they think it's a good idea, and B, if this was to happen with or without their consent, what would they like to see, and then kind of compare that against the rest of the commission.
So how about this, we vote today on whether or not to expand to 3-year terms, and then we request at a future meeting their input on adding additional members, and get a calendar of when people are moving in and off of this committee, so we know, you know, the impact of staging and terms and who moves when, how many renewals are left, and so on. And then discuss it again on a future agenda item about whether or not it should be expanded based on that input. Does that sound good? So if we move to 3 years right now, then we will have an open application period happen. So if you know people,
I approve that, adding a year to a term should, ask, for another application process. I think it's a good precedent for the city.
well, it would just be by default because it's the end of the third.
Right.
Yeah, the end of his first term. So then we would have an open seat that he could be reappointed to, would be eligible for, but also other community members would too. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, we've had some discussion. Is there anything else? And if not, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, great. Did you catch the little bits about some future information? So if you could get us a calendar of the
Yeah.
members and terms, eligibility for renewal, and let us know about the application period, and how to get people appointed to it, their thoughts on expanding the committee itself, including ideas of a committee at large or different term. It'd be interesting to hear their input on all of those. Thank you. Okay, let's get back to the agenda. Next on our agenda is work plan review and discussion, and a little background on this. Dana and I have been meeting and drafting this elaborate series of spreadsheets and looking at other boards and commissions' work plans and really kind of trying to hone in on what the goal of this document is. And at our last meeting, we discussed that we think it would actually be really helpful to come back to y'all and say, what do you feel is the purpose and goal of a work plan? And we're asking that question because as we drafted it, we hit a couple things. lofty. We didn't want to create a document that was kind of like a visionary document that we couldn't actually attain. And what we're trying to get to is things that we want to address, work on, discuss, approve, et cetera, in an actual calendar so that both the community and ourselves know what's coming at us soon. And I think really what I'd like to do is just ask y'all, what do you feel is the goal of a work plan? There are some visionary components, there are some like more critical things like, we'll discuss this in July, we'll discuss that in August. But there seems to be some different ways to go about creating these work plans at different boards and commissions, and some are very task oriented and some are very, we want to create an explosion of residential population in downtown. Like if we tie it to our council recommendations, it's really hard to put that in a calendar, right? How do you put an explosion of residential population on a calendar? So what are y'all's thoughts on a work plan? What would you like to see a work plan accomplish? Would you like Dana and I to figure it out?
This is my jam, I love stuff like that. So a work plan to me, it comes from strategic thought and strategic plans and boil down to what are the actionable steps that actually align and drive to those strategic plans within a given period of time. So for me, I would, even if it's just on a calendar year, like to talk about what are the, top 2 objectives that we're looking to accomplish within the year based on city council's recommendations or what have you. And then from there, whittle into how that can possibly be accomplished with internal and other commission resources working collaboratively together. So that's like the gist of how I see it.
Okay, thank you.
It seems that there's one piece in a calendar that doesn't move next to council's calendar, people work it then. So I'd like to see whatever, during budget season, things like that, we have, that our work is like leading into their work as really an advisory body.
Yeah, that came up too, and, we didn't really look at it from that lens quite yet, because we were kind of getting lost in the process. Aligning with council.
Yeah, and along with your comments, I think that also we need to follow up after they do their strategic planning every year. We need to review our goals to make sure that they're also supporting the council's goals. So it's kind of like a before and after perspective.
One of the responses I have when Dana and I talked about that was that I think it's great to align ourselves with council goals. We are here to support and advise them. I also think there are things that come up that aren't on their radar that we need to bring to them. So I don't want us to lose that piece too, that we're just here to like accomplish a series of events. We're also here to watch out for downtown and protect it and grow it and do all these things that might not have fallen into their, frankly, very chaotic work plan. Theirs is incredibly large. So there might be things that are missing that we would bring forward to just kind of.
Well, we can speak up all year, but we can speak up at the right time of year, for instance, right before council retreat. I feel like that is, that's a relative time that we speak up and we have priorities. That's a really great time to do it. It's a good focus of our effort.
And what I'm hearing them say is that around impact more than like orbiting, like specifically around them, is actually creating city councils, looking at their objectives and pace and our impacts on that. That's how I'm perceiving what they're saying.
And we also give them our recommendations right at retreat time, right? So we have our review, our annual retreat, and we create these documents of our goals and, philosophy around those goals, and then we give them to council to help inform their goals. But the follow-up from that, like what they chose of our goals is probably a pretty critical piece. so this is, you know, when Dan and our meeting, it was like, all right, how do we put this in a calendar? So, priority number one was public space management, lighting, signage, wayfinding, et cetera. And then downtown code and development guidelines and streetscape plan, so the, UDO updates basically, and downtown master plan updates, I'm sorry. Next one was livability, so support explosion of growth and diverse residents, affordable housing, housing typologies, year-round residents, growth of the CBD. When we put that in a calendar, it's really hard to flush out. I mean, it kind of looks like a discussion. We could say, we're gonna work on growing residential population in July, but, you know,
Or we can measure, I mean, it's not just discussion, but what implementation, what implements can we offer that actually measure that or account for it or add to the measurement of it, you know, things like that.
and we took it too, as we thought, well, maybe this is really about understanding what is currently happening, that we might impact or offer advice on how it could continue to move forward, which elaborated to, okay, well, we could have a presentation on affordable housing, we could have a presentation on high impact sites. And then we got a little concerned that what we were doing was taking a lot of staff time to come and present to us so that we felt fully informed, but did that turn into action, or did that just consume time, you know? So we're struggling a little bit with how to get our goals onto a calendar that makes us feel like we're actually acting on something.
Well, I think this is where, for me, we've had really great presentations here. And so some of the questions I'm perpetually left with, and others maybe too, like, you know, when the police come and talk about the summer bike program, okay, so now we're knowledgeable about it. I think it was 2 months ago. What instruments do we want to look for on a monthly basis once it goes live? And how do we evaluate those in our monthly meetings? You know, it's not just a discussion point, but we actually keep that relationship intact. So it's not just a presentation, it becomes a forward relation that shares information while it's in progress. And I think that could be really useful in addition to other things. And measuring like the local piece of it, because we haven't talked about that, and I think that's really important. Those are big overarching goals, but under it all, we've got to throw the local business, the local residents, the local component in there as well.
And that's one of them on our 2-year work plan, protecting and growing a strong local identity and culture. There's a series of points under that. Again, just challenging to put on a calendar. You know, is a calendar just like tasks that we will cover, or is it a vision document?
I think it's both.
It's both. Perhaps you could join Dana and I in our adventure to try to get this document on paper.
I'm very good at those things, like I'm really good at that.
I can sense that, so that would be helpful.
It would also be cool to be able to see, at least once a year to look back and say, what did we
committees can have more specific input, maybe to help lighten the load of what you're trying to pull together. But like, for example, design review committee, what were some of the items that were brought up this year that very specifically maybe made a difference in quality development or just things like that, that maybe each committee, subcommittee, focuses a little bit more on more detailed information than you're able to put in the report. So
That
it's
would
just
always be
all.
helpful, sure.
I think it also, what you just said, addresses diversity, because if the subcommittees are also looking to other subcommittees that could very much have an input in that particular thing, like even with design review, like we just discussed, if, you know, another, like the historic committee or something like that had enough diversity but enough professionalism to tie in, then it's covered, and it doesn't need another seat or whatever, and it could be 3-year terms, but it's integrating those pieces, I think, that actually gives us that ecosystem.
Okay, so, this week Dana and I have been requesting other boards and committees work plans and kind of drop them in a folder. Maybe what we can do is, share that folder. I think it's a smarter conversation too, at least with Sarah, sort of Warmberg, or I'm not sure how to say her name, about, you know, is there uniformity across how these work plans are organized? And it doesn't seem that way. And some are really inspiring. You start to look at it, you start to get to the problems Dana and I were talking about, format and, achieving that. So how about we'll take your input, we'll meet again, and we'll open up a folder for y'all that shows other committees, boards and commissions, work plans, and we'll reconvene on the topic, perhaps with a draft. Does that work? I appreciate y'all's input. I know sometimes it just seems like we'll create this document, we'll put it out, but I think there's also some public engagement and community awareness that comes from a document that is a public-facing document that says, you know, sometime in the fall, we'll be working on this issue, and if you wanted to participate in it, you would know to come to the meeting. And there's a public-facing component too that I want to make sure we keep in mind. Okay, thank you for that lively discussion. We are on to updates and reports. I have a brief one for Parking and Transportation Subcommittee, and that is to say we welcomed a new parking services manager. His name is Garrett Mayo. Seems very informed and pleasant. It's really early to say anything much about him. He seemed like a nice guy and he's ready to get started. We gave him a couple tasks already. On the broader scope, we are still looking at the loading zones, and we've been reaching out to delivery vendors. And if you have, so we first met with the community, the business community, about their concerns around loading zones. Now we're trying to move to the actual delivery trucks and drivers and companies that bring the trucks through. So if you have an organization, if your organization has deliveries, I would appreciate you letting us know who that is. So we'd like to have a stakeholder meeting with them, and that is our next step. So far, we've contacted about 15 delivery companies and only heard back from a couple. And I would like to have a broader discussion with them so that we can kind of make some recommendations that helps every party. Other than that, the Party Transportation Committee is, I think that's really all we're working on right now. We've got some longer range goals around the parking, the public-private parking partnership, the 4 Ps. Starting to work on some framework and ideas and looking at how other communities work on that, especially in light of some larger projects coming up that are planning to build decks. And is there an opportunity for the city to partner on them? And how can we support the city looking at those kind of opportunities? How about you, Franzi, with the Local Living Economy Working Group?
Yeah, sure. So our last meeting was spent mostly on discussion around the naming of the Civic Center, and it resulted in a special meeting of the Downtown Commission, which I was really appreciative of all that were able to show up for that. I think we learned a lot. It was very informative. The next meeting is going to be on the 20th this month, and it looks like Janice from our legal department will be joining us. Thank you, Dana, for making that happen. We're looking at how other towns and communities have been able to boost and benefit locally owned independent businesses, especially in their downtowns and central cores, but also in neighborhoods, different types of ordinances and ways they've been able to keep the culture of businesses vibrant and thriving. And we're specifically looking at what Folly Beach just passed, which is a formula business ordinance in their downtown. They're
good to bring the survey to this commission before it goes.
Well, we
That's
will
pretty
be,
exciting.
our next meeting in July is the 12th, so it'll be actually the day after that. So we might be able to jump right from the committee meeting to the commission the next day. I would really like that. I hope we get all green lights on the 11th and come here and get more positive feedback and just move forward with this hand thing. I know Kate has some input for us too, right? That's still in process too.
They're gonna help with pushing the survey out. They've been involved, but not a lot of substantive feedback on the content.
Great. Thank you for that update. Now Dana, we are on to your downtown update.
Good morning. Excited to say that the mural for the stairwell between Wall Street and Battery Park is finally going to be installed. And that's really exciting. It's taken us a while to get to this point, but it's scheduled to be installed on beginning Monday of next week, mostly during the evening hours, so there will be some partial closures of the stairwell during those times. And hoping to get that done within the week next week. It could extend it to the following week, but that is funded and being managed by the Downtown Association, so it's kind of a test program for considering other opportunities to have private entities make public space enhancements.
Is that the one on the stairs?
On the
It
stairs.
started already.
Yeah, we did
Yes.
a little test
Yes.
area.
It looks good, I like it.
Cool, thanks. And we had a visual impairment specialist come give us some glasses. We had risk there, we had public works, we had transportation. So we're trying to be really thoughtful about what the impacts could be for people using the stairwell. And the contrast actually is going to be a little bit more than what's there now. So we'll see. It's kind of an interesting thing for us all to take on. So hopefully it'll be well received. City-owned property redevelopment. So we were going to have an update at this meeting. I talked with the city-owned property team, and it just didn't feel like the right time to have major updates specifically on the properties in the Central Business District. So the latest is that staff is currently drafting a policy on how to handle city-owned properties, the ones being considered now and in the future. There is a process underway to look at the costs of relocating all of the uses happening on the South Charlotte Street properties. And so that's kind of the next step for those, is to look at what that full scope would be to do that. 319 Biltmore and 91 Riverside Drive are probably moving along a little bit quicker than those South Charlotte Street properties, since we would need to relocate all those facilities. So I know that you all are interested in this, and our city-owned property team knows that you're interested in this, so we want to keep you posted, but there's not a whole lot to share at this point with the South Charlotte Street properties. Haywood Page design plan, so that work is funded in this year's budget. The budget was approved on Tuesday, so staff is currently negotiating that contract with the lead consultant team, Nelson Bergwolds. There
Yeah, a
are
long time coming on that one.
Yeah, it's been a long
How many years? Can we count?
Wow.
Is that on our work plan?
At least 10.
Is that on our work plan for this year?
Right, we need to get that in there.
Yeah. It's slated for 2029.
So there's 3 graduations taking place this weekend, just a heads up, so there's probably gonna be some traffic around the Civic Center. We worked with the county to make the Cox Avenue Sears Alley garage free, so that'll be free on Saturday. And there's gonna be more APD officers this year than in previous years, helping to direct traffic, so hopefully that will go smoothly.
I have a question for you about that, David. So last week I brought to your attention that the Civic Center entrance off of Hayward Street is closed, and there's no signage, so people are pulling in and then realizing it's closed, and then they have to turn around. And I'm really concerned that during the graduation, that's gonna be, so you might want to alert, parking and APD to be, watching out for that, so we don't have major backups on Hayward Street.
So, and I appreciate
has been kind of a mess up there.
Yeah,
But my question is free parking, we don't PPK.
that's at the other deck.
Oh, it's the other.
Exactly.
It's the county that civic center.
Civic Center's still charging special then.
Yeah.
Which is probably $7.
Yeah.
Our goal for that new digital sign was by graduation, and we didn't quite make it, but, it's it's the most chaotic time of year to get to that deck, so the fact that it's now also broken. So yes, that entrance is gonna be closed for the next 2 to 3 weeks, is what we're hearing from parking services, so there's a temporary sign out, and Dan, I appreciate you bringing that to
Okay.
my attention, so our communications team is now getting the word out,
Great.
because I don't think it was on there. Development project updates, so the Flatiron proposal is gonna return to city council on June 25th. And that calls for 71 hotel rooms, which is down from 80, and commercial office space on the second floor, in addition to restaurant and retail space, so that's a change from their previous proposal. The Broadway North Market Street mixed-use project is likely returning to the design review committee on June 18th.
Oh, I hope not.
Oh,
Been there 3 times.
Never mind,
Oh,
scratch that.
Did I hear that that's a hotel or apartment?
Yes, 150 hotel rooms and 30 residential units, of which 20% or 60 units are affordable.
But that's that creates the two Broadway project, correct?
Yes.
Right, yeah. And the 360 Hilliard Avenue project, so that has gone through some changes. You had previously reviewed that project. It's city-owned property, so there's been, an agreement with the city in terms of the affordability levels and how that property gets sold. And that went back to city council on Tuesday. City council did approve the sale of the property, which is going to now be rentals instead of condos, which it had previously been. There's going to be 34 affordable housing units, a public parking lot, and the developer is going to be building a trailhead for the Code Branch Greenway on that property as well. And do you have anything to add?
I hate to interrupt you, I'm
No.
sorry, I just wanted to add a couple details, that 18 of those units will be at 60% AMI, and 16 of them will be at 80% AMI, and the term of affordability is 50 years. We also sold the property to them for $475,000, and there's a $1.4 million housing trust fund loan and a $560,000 Luigi grant, which, if this is built, will be the first time we actually use the Luigi, which is great. But I think those numbers are important. And then before you go on to other updates, I'd be curious to know if you know anything about that other Broadway hotel, Broadway and it was the corner living.
It's been totally silent.
Totally
We
silent,
haven't
but
heard
still
a
in,
word.
when does it time out?
It may have already expired, 6
Wait,
months.
which one?
It was on it was like where Rosetta's, Loretta's,
Oh.
and then that corner. After 6 months of no action, it expires.
Oh.
So they'd have to start over.
And that actually really call you tomorrow and be like, hey, we're still talking.
Yeah, we have not heard anything.
Okay, interesting. I'd be
It's a
curious
really
to know
hard-
if that has been officially expired.
Okay.
Thank you.
Probably.
360 Hilliard, that project is coming back to the downtown commission because they've added a floor. So they will come back for design review in July. Other updates, the city's launched a new website, so bear with us, things are a little bit hard to find right now. The old site is still accessible, and the address is legacy.asheville.nc.gov, and you can find everything there, but we are working on migrating content. It's no www, it should be legacy.asheville.nc.gov. When you get to the new site, I think the format is great. It feels, something about it just feels clearer and easier to navigate. It's a service-oriented website, so it's targeted to people looking, looking for specific services. It's less just information and more service-based. So the city has hired a new police chief, and a press release went out yesterday, so if you're interested in learning more about that. His name is Chris Bailey, and he was recently in Indianapolis as the deputy police chief, I believe. And yes, the Haywood Street entrance to the Civic Center garage is closed.
I saw that the police chief was significantly, had dealt with 5 times the number of officers than we have here, right? You've dealt with 1,000-something officers, and here we have a couple hundred, which I thought was interesting. still have a request out to Deborah Campbell to come and speak to us at some point. I know she's moving through the meetings and incredibly busy, but keep that on my calendar. All right, anything else from you, Dana? Looks like it.
Any questions?
Okay, that means we are on public comment. Would anyone here today like to make a public comment? All right, you know the drill, you have 3 minutes, state your name.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Peter Lantis, and although 363 Hilliard is no longer on the agenda, I want to point out that there's already a building, a residential building in Asheville called the Asheville. It's been there for 90 years. I happen to live there, 61 Church Street.
Oh, that's really good.
Just want to point that out. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't notice that, but that was
Thank you. Any other public comments today? Come on up, if you could just state your name.
Good morning. My name is Sharon and I'm on the Tree Commission. And I am here to read ordinances.
Okay.
What we're trying to do on the Tree Commission is implement for better survivability of our urban canopy. All right, I'm going to read this so I can make it short, concise, and don't forget anything. And landscape and buffering standards 711.3E, which is the Tree Commission's purview. Street trees required within the CBD, urban village, neighborhood corridor, urban residential, and urban place districts may utilize other urban forms and technologies such as tree pit with grates or trenches. New trees where sidewalk construction is required shall provide a minimum root zone of 300 cubic feet of organically amended soil or structural soil alternative in one of the following forms. I. A reinforced suspended sidewalk system around a tree grate. II. Continuous planting area between trees that is a minimum of 4 feet wide. III. A system of tree grates or previous paving that allows water infiltration and oxygen exchange for tree root systems. An IV, an on-street bulb out, which has been reviewed and approved by the traffic engineer for traffic safety. As a representative for the Tree Commission on TRC, what I see mostly is 60-inch by 60-inch tree grates that do not provide the minimum of 300 cubic feet of amended soil as stated in the UDO. We on the Tree Commission are working on changing this in the UDO. Meanwhile, there are measures that can be taken now by developers, and I would like the Downtown Commission to be aware of them if you are not already. 1. Silicells. Silicells is a technology that was used by BT&T in an example of reinforced suspended sidewalk systems, and that allows water infiltration. That is the preferred system for planting street trees and are cost effective. 2. Planting strips, which can be used in more applications, building designs are more thought out to the urban canopy. Tree grates without a system of oxygen exchange are not a suitable method of planting to maintain tree health, even in the best of circumstances. Developers are not thinking outside of tree grates due to lack of knowledge, or thinking suspended sidewalk systems are costly and difficult, which they are not. Street trees, after 1 year, are the sole responsibility of Mark Foster, and he is inheriting weak and stressed trees due to lack of general maintenance, inattention, and incorrect planting techniques. So in case you don't know, which I'm sure you all do, CZs that do not comply with tree and planting requirements do not go to the Tree Commission as alternative compliance. They go straight to P&Z and to council. Plans that are not CZ and do not comply with alternative compliance, some TRC applicants are unaware that in alternative compliance in the UDO, it states alternative compliance standards. No request for alternative compliance under this section may be approved unless the information provided in support of the request shows the following. II. The physical conditions or constraints are not a result of the applicant's own actions. 711.3 AII. I appreciate your time and attention as the decline and demise of a lot of our newly planted trees and shrubs are not meeting the standards for health and survivability. So, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, I'm curious, when the projects go through a CZ process and the tree commission doesn't weigh in, do you all still write to council? Or?
We're pretty vocal, if you're not familiar with us on the tree commission. And we will becoming more vocal as the fact is that the city denied a request for urban forester, so that's even, you're gonna hear more of us. What happens with me, because we never had a representative on TRC before, so how I got on the tree commission is I started getting the ordinance to find out why things were happening in the order they were happening, and finding out that the ordinances were, and so my job has been to come back and to go to the TRC meetings, make comments, and then to advise the tree commission on where it sits in the ordinances and where the ordinances are failing our urban canopy, and what can we do to change the situations that we're having with the amount of loss we're sustaining with our, to work with developers without being contentious and come up with new ways. We've got a couple people that are scientists on the tree commission that are coming up with ways that are not so aggressively against the developers to work with, so that everybody can work together to try to maintain the canopy as much as we can, if that makes sense.
Can I invite you to send the information to either our chair or Dana?
I made a copy and was hoping that you would want to take a look at it, because, everybody gets in the weeds in their area of expertise, and we only know what we know.
I really appreciate you taking the time, because this alternative compliance, I've seen it not really, I think, fulfill the goal of what the ordinance is and what our community wants as far as greenery in the concrete jungle. And so I feel that there's some room for improvement here, and we can be better partners with developers to bring greenery to the community.
Yeah, thank you. And Mark Foster with the city, now that there is not going to be, at this point in conjunction, an urban forester, it's all dropped on Mark Foster with the limited requirement. And as you can take a look when you park and walk up at our street trees that are dying, that are sitting in those tree grates, that it's little by little, as you guys know, to make the changes. So we appreciate your help and knowledge of it. And you're going to be seeing more of our input as best we can to give you more knowledge so you can make the decisions that you need to make and the manner you need to make them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
I've
this.
got one comment, Sharon. I don't know if the tree commission has discussed this with staff, but it's my understanding currently the silver cell system is not a requirement. It's in the city of Asheville standard detail book, and so a developer has an option of using it or not. And to me, that's like the simplest thing to just make a requirement for street tree plantings. Just require silver cells be installed like the Aris Hotel is doing now. And it's a matter of cost, but in the scheme of things, it's really nothing. And I think that might be something good for y'all to explore. How could that become a mandatory requirement?
We are, and that requires a change in the UDO. But meanwhile, what I do is I suggest at TRC, if I'm able to the planner or to the developer at the meeting, to say that it would best serve the tree survivability. But right now, it's just a suggestion. So we're looking at the changes of changing UDO, as you know, as an ordinance. So we're looking at policy as opposed to ordinance changes and the difference in those. So
most cities require that now, structural soils. Most cities require that, and we're just one that doesn't require. I can tell you that in the design review committee, we constantly are bringing this up, the tree grates, and the idea and concept of exploring a more creative route for improving the viability of the street tree. So I'm glad y'all are focusing on it, and you brought this to our attention. I really think that structural soil requirements and silver cell, the city of Asheville detail, should be a requirement. So we need to find a way to make that
thank you
happen.
for the support. The trees love you.
More acts.
Yeah.
And even without changes to the UDO, that's something that could be incorporated into our design review, without having to go through the whole UDO process. So that's something.
That's our hope. And when I heard you talk about working with different commissions. This is also our conversations we're having in our subgroups, and this is my beginning step into reaching out to the different commissions that are involved in the design and implementation of the canopy laws.
I have added it to our list of things to discuss as we update the guidelines.
Thank you.
I also think it would be helpful at some point in our work plan to invite Mark Foster or someone from the tree commission to talk to us about what they believe the state of street trees is, and maybe even like, I don't know how much information we have. We have a GIS file that's like trees. I have no idea, but it'd be interesting to learn more about, and something certainly this commission.
We have a member of the tree commission on the public space management committee.
We do, and there's a member on the planning board, I think, so.
And P&Z.
Yeah, planning board, so, and that's Guillermo, and I think, some continuity between this board before things, after us to go to P and Z, so he might be a good
I
person.
also like the idea of an urban forester, so that's another thing we might entertain in the future, is a resolution supporting that.
Yeah, next year's
That'd
budget,
be
perhaps.
wonderful. I think we started not knowing, maybe we were a little more naive and I'm pushing forward a lot smarter now, which is good. And so the next funding cycle will be a little more concise with whom and how we get to support this, because it's needed. Other cities have it, and we have more trees in most cities.
But the time is right for this urban forestry, even more so this year, because so many of the spaces where we have large trees downtown, these are spaces that haven't been developed, that are currently being planned for development. So there are blocks where there are huge trees that are not in sidewalks, they're just inside the parcels.
Right.
They're getting ready to be removed. The Cox Ashland project is a prime example. So the urban forest we have left has got to be managed at a different level than what it has been a year ago.
Right, you're going to hear a lot about the South Slope, communities getting together and counting trees and getting involved in the tree commission, and to let everybody know how many trees are actually coming out and how many are not going in. So there will be more discussion from the community on it, and they're coming at us full force. So
Well, I love what you're saying, because it goes to the core. It's not just about people, a local living economy, it's also about live trees, live, it's the whole ecosystem.
Right.
So I'm really grateful you came here today, and it's totally integrated into what we're doing.
I know, I thought when I was sitting there, I was going, yay, because I've not been to any of your meetings before, I've read, and then with the new change on I couldn't read your past minutes to see what the topics, I couldn't find you, so it's like, it would be there, I know.
Legacy before.
Yeah,
Legacy done.
so thank you, I'll probably be back again, with different things that are coming up, and I appreciate the receptivity.
Nicknaming you the Lorax.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for being here. Any other public comments today? Oh, we have one more. No. We traditionally say 3 minutes, and we did not stick to 3 minutes. Sorry.
My name is Laura Brower, and I'm just coming as a citizen. This is one of the first times I've dropped in. So, I guess one thing I've been thinking about is the climate and how we're all engaging with environmental things. So I'm very encouraged. I love being in the city. It's been about a year for me. And one thing I heard today, you guys talked about the design review committee a lot, which sounds like a great thing, and some development that's going on around Klingman, I think it was. And you listed off a number of things that the design committee addressed, and just 2 things that popped out that I didn't hear were the environment, essentially assessment of the environment and public transportation, and maybe they're in there. I'm really curious to learn more information about how that design committee works and what boxes you're all checking off, because I think it's a great way to, engage your stakeholders in a positive process. And I was also very encouraged by talk about how private, building out that property, doing in a really big picture way. You know, maybe that one property doesn't have a huge impact, but we're doing it all over town does. So having that kind of engagement with an organization like NOAA or a representative that's really invested in the climate science or the hydrology and things like that, I think would be great. And maybe that's happening, maybe that's not. I'm just trying to find more information. Another quick comment was when you were mentioning the polystyrene, which I think I heard about in a meeting 2 months ago. I think that's wonderful that somehow you stopped that process that was polluting and getting the styrene in the air. I know it flows around a lot. And I'm just curious why it's okay to have an alternative that's still polluting, even if it's just polluting less. I think you guys have the power, so again, just curious. I don't know what's behind the scenes in that. But yeah, that's all.
Thank you. You're speaking to, just so you know, the design review committee really just looks at the building, the design of the building, but there are other processes in place for the impacts to the area, the block, the neighborhood, the trees, the sidewalks and things. And then we, as a commission, when we review a project more formally, we have an opportunity to see today, and I know you'll be in town, we'll talk more about those things. I would recommend you Google around and find our design guidelines, which is a set of requirements of the EDO, and then under it a recommendations that we have for those projects moving forward. You'll see some of that in there.
And also while you're doing that, check out the Sustainability Commission and the Parking and Transportation Commission, since those seem to be two of your.
Yeah, and I have been to SACE, the Sustainability Committee, I haven't been to Park and Transportation. I'm also an engineer, that's my background, and I'm very used to being in groups where people actually silo themselves and focus on the tasks that they're supposed to do and do it really well, but connecting to that big picture and sort of cross-contaminating what's happening, I think is often missing, and I'm wondering if that's the case a little bit, or if there's a connection or process that I just haven't seen.
I'm always contaminating.
And most of us are on other boards and commissions, or have been, like I was on the Sustainability Commission for 3 years. So, you know, we are trying to share information, although siloing is always a danger, you know, when you're dealing with big organizations.
Yeah, and one of the things that comes up for me in particular with public transportation is, you know, as we do the downtown explosion of population and people plan for parking and things like that, it's a lot of traffic, a lot of pollution, and in my personal opinion, your quality of life in those aspects goes down a lot. It's not very pleasant to like walk through a street that has a lot of car exhaust that you're walking next to and things like that.
Multimodal is good for that too, if you're not.
There's a new transit master plan.
Right.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll fully consider you and your energy.
You're kind of polystyrene too, just so you
Yeah.
know where we came from, where we are trying to get to on this stuff is from pollution that can't be cleaned up. Literally cannot, I've seen it, not impossible to vacuum and clean up, to pollution that can be cleaned up. That's I think that's a pretty good step. And of course, I'd love to see better materials and things that were not polystyrene. But I don't believe that's the way forward for that one. We did get a way forward for at least contamination that can be cleaned up.
Yeah, and my concern with that was extruded plastic, I assume it still is, and that's really light. Even shavings of extruded plastic, like, they're gonna blow in the wind, so I don't know the process again, they're obviously, I'm sure gonna do something to contain that if they're telling you to, but, yeah.
That's the goal. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the area. Anything else? Any other folks? We'll talk about it today. And we're restraining 3 minutes, so.
I wasn't gonna say this, but I just have to. I want to talk about the Flatiron Project. I know you can't, as a group, do anything about it. In my opinion, the changes that they've brought forth don't do anything to address the real concerns with turning that building into mostly a hotel, throwing out most of the small businesses. They haven't done anything to address the traffic. And I know you can't do anything about it as a group, but if you as an individual care, I hope that you will contact the resident of the city council. I heard the decision's been made, it's gonna pass. I don't until the actual meeting, so. Write or call or talk your friend. Thanks, bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.